Hey, what's up, Exit the Matrix? Bob here. Hope you are having a good day, good morning, good night, whenever you get a chance to see this. I wanted to do a talk today. First, I wanted to clarify one thing. This is going to be a little bit about the hypocrisy of religion. But first, I wanted to clear one thing up because on my Facebook page, Exit the Matrix, I get constantly, I'm not going to say attacked, because I don't think that's what anybody means. Their intentions, I think their intentions are good, at least in their mind. But I guess we'll say ridiculed. On my page that, people say I don't believe in God and I don't believe in a creator and I'm an atheist and all this stuff. That is absolutely not true. Anybody that's followed my work for, a few years, I mean, even just for a few months, I think they realize I do believe that there is a creator of all, a source of all energy and creation, and that we are living in a constructed reality, simulated. It don't really matter what you want to call it. However, my concept of the creator is not a deity that you find in one of these religious books. Don't matter Hindu Vedas, Zoroastrianism, Judaism, Christianity, Islam. My concept of God is not one of those deities. So I just wanted to clear that up. I have a strong faith in the Creator, and in fact, I commune with the Creator. You call it prayers. But I think a lot of people that are in religions, they see their concept of God that their religion has designed as the ultimate and only God. Like their God's right, nobody else's is right. Like you have a Christian and a Muslim sitting next to each other. They could argue all day about whose God is the most omnipotent, the most powerful, the true God, which one's the devil and the liar, and they're both going to stand fast in their belief that their God is the right God, right? They'll go down to their grave, claiming that their God is the right God, which is an interesting thing I do find, though, which is really interesting to me, is when you have a Judean and a Christian next to each other, and they could be talking about their God. The funny thing is, a Judean will say that Yeshua was not their God, that he did not come down in human form and, was not the Son of God and such. But yet, a Christian will sit there and say that their God is their God. They just don't understand it. I have major issue with that. And this is coming from many years of research and studying the Bible and reading it front to back to front. It's quite obvious for anybody that's actually studied the whole Bible that the Old Testament Judean God, Hebrew God, it don't matter, whatever you want to call it, is not the same Father or God that Yeshua teaches about. It's quite obvious. I mean, the differences are obvious between the two deities. You've got Yeshua teaching about a Father that loves all, all of his children. You have a father that has, unlimited home or space in his kingdom for every soul. Now, I'm talking about Yeshua's teaching here. I'm not talking about what your church teaches, okay? Let's get that straight, because what your church teaches has been plugged in with a lot of dogma that most of it wasn't even in the Bible to begin with, the New Testament or the Old Testament. It's been added in later on through the years, through the Middle Ages, even up to the late 1800s. And how some of these churches nowadays, it's dogmas and made-up, man-made beliefs that came even from the 1900s, I mean, heck, you've got 10,000 different denominations in the United States alone. I'm talking about just strictly what Yeshua was teaching, just in the New Testament. I'm not even bringing in the Nag Hammadi, his teachings that were in other books, Dead Sea Scrolls that didn't make it into the New Testament. He was teaching of an all-loving God. He called his Father. That this God taught peace and love to one another. That was basically the teaching right there. The Old Testament God is not that same God. The Old Testament God taught that slavery was okay. In fact, most of his followers of the time owned slaves. In fact, women were considered property. Women were barely more than a slave in the eyes of this God. Most men that followed this religion, the Old Testament, that were talked about, written about in the Old Testament, had concubines. They had slave concubines that they captured from conquered lands. The Old Testament God was a God of war. I mean, you cannot argue with me on this. He was a God of war. And I know a lot of Christians will say, oh, well, that's because they had to destroy the nation of Israel. They had to destroy the Nephilim, the giants, and the heathens that occupied the Levant and parts of Mesopotamia. Yeah, they had to destroy those people. That God was trying to rid the earth of the Nephilim bloodline. Now that's what the Old Testament says, right? Well, it's interesting that's what they wrote, right? The victors write the story. How do we know any of this? Now, I'm not saying that there weren't giants in that time. There possibly could. I mean, Neanderthals alone were much bigger than the human species. So were the Neanderthals skeletons of these bigger beings? Possibly. Obviously, there's stories all around the world, even North America, Ireland, and such, that of these giants. So, yes, there probably were giants in the time. Were they all evil people? Or were they just trying to raise their families and live a life? I don't know. I mean, we get one side, right? That they were all heathen. They were all worshiping false gods. They were giants or such. They had Nephilim bloodline that had to be wiped out, right? So your whole picture of them is that these were like evil devils and stuff. We don't know any of that. But it's funny to note that the ones that wrote this wholly believed in complete annihilation of other tribes and other city-states and other nations of peoples. They believed that land that those people owned and lived on was theirs. And they believed that they had a right to it because this God demanded it. He demanded they go to war and destroy these people. Kill every man, woman, and animal and child. Or sometimes kill all the men, take the women's for spoils. You know what that means? That means rape. That means rape the women. If you don't, or take them as concubines. Okay, let's be real about the wording in the Old Testament, okay? Let's stop candy coating this BS. I really get tired of it. Because most people that argue with me on this subject have never even studied the Bible. They sit in their pew every Sunday, listen to Pastor Dan, read them two hand-picked lines out of the New Testament. Oh, they hardly ever touch the Old Testament because it's like a landmine, right? They got to just hand-pick things in here and there. Oh, Isaiah said this. Now let's go back to what John says, or Paul. Because they know damn well what is in that Old Testament. They know damn well that it's about war, destruction, rape, slavery, murder. It has nothing to do with the God Yeshua taught about. Now, I want to make something abundantly clear to people too, because I have all these people call me and I'm not going to use the name they use because that's a made-up name by the Roman Catholics, okay? By the powers, the rulers, and the priest class of the time that met in the Council of Nicaea to decide which books would be in the New Testament and which ones wouldn't. I'm not gonna use that name. I'm called by his real name, Yeshua. Okay? I just sorry guys, I gotta make that abundantly clear. Everybody calls this person by a fake name. And there's power in names. You don't understand that. Words contain power. But Yeshua was not teaching about a God described in the Old Testament. And I want to make it clear to people, I do not deny that Yeshua ever walked the earth. I, in fact, am one of the strongest proponents that Yeshua walked the earth. Yeshua was a master teacher of his time. He was as great as Buddha, if not greater. He was as great as Hermes, Thoth Hermes. He was highly taught and learned in the mystery schools. He traveled the whole world. He taught and learned with the Druids as far north as the British Isles. He traveled to the Far East. Some say even as far as Japan. He taught in the temples. He learned with the Zoroastrians in Persia. He was in the Hindu temples. He was in Egypt learning the mystery schools. He was all around the world. He traveled for many years. He was born into this role to be a teacher. The Essenes. He was born into the Essenes. His family were Essenes. John the Baptist was an Essene. They were the mystic cult. They were basically the rebel hippies of the time. They were not part of the Sadducees or the Pharisees. Those were the state religions of the time. They were the priest class. They were the ones pushing the war god, the Old Testament God, the liar from the beginning, the devil. Okay? Yeshua was real. He walked the earth. And yes, he was the Son of God. And yes, he was the Son of Man. As we all are, people. We all are. I don't understand why Christians give their divinity away. Why do you think he taught that you can be greater than I. But yet Christians say nobody's greater than Yeshua, you know? They don't understand what Yeshua was trying to teach. Yeshua came with knowledge of the other side. He knew the truth of reality. He knew that this world was a simulation controlled by a demiurge, a devil masquerading as the creator. He understood that. But yet Christians don't understand that. It just blows my mind. And Christians also don't understand that most of the Old Testament was an amalgamation of different ancient religions. They stole from the Egyptians. They stole most of it from the Sumerians. Those tablets were sitting around for thousands of years before any Hebrew, any Judean tribe, scribe, or Levite ever put a symbol on a piece of paper or a goat skin these were already there. They stole it. They stole from the Zoroastrian faith. The Zoroastrians were essentially the first ones that taught of a single God, of a ultimate single God. And yes, that God had an opposite that was, I guess you could call the devil, similar to the Old Testament. There's a reason for that. And in fact, most of the stories in the Old Testament, especially the far back Genesis and such, was actually about the two brother Anuna gods from the Sumerian pantheon, Enlil and Enki. The Yahweh and the snake. Enlil was the god walking through the garden that kicked Adam and Eve out, and Enki, his brother, was the serpent that was teaching them the truth of this reality. Think about that. They got kicked out of the Garden of Eden because he was teaching them the truth of what they are, the power that they are, that they're literally from God, that they are God, they're part of God, and that they're not just these dumb, obedient slaves. And that's what Enlil wanted. That's what your Old Testament God wanted. He wanted slaves, okay? Just like the Muslim God. They want slaves. They don't want free thinkers. They don't want creative, powerful beings as their children. They want obedient slaves. Don't you get that? That's what they want. And most of these, you know why there's so many names for the Old Testament God? People will say, oh, well, it's because they had to make up names because they weren't allowed to call him by his name. And it's the most ridiculous shit I've ever heard. No, there's a reason why there were so many names. The Most High, on and on and on. Lord of Hosts, the Lord, Yahweh, Jehovah. There's all these different names because those weren't all Enlil. Those were other Anuna gods from the old Sumerian pantheon. Okay? You can find them in there. Marduk's in the Bible. Merodach. Baal. You got Inanna is in there as Ishtar. I mean, folks, please understand this. Those of you that try to say that Yeshua and the God that Yeshua talked about, his father, that is this God of the Old Testament, you are totally ignorant to the fact that the Old Testament God was based on multiple gods. And in fact, even if you just take the Old Testament God for what it teaches, he's a war god, okay? He's a god of war, destruction, rape, pillage. He asked for sacrifice. Think about this. What the hell does the creator of all need blood sacrifice for? What does he need animal fat for? Now, the priest class needed all that. They needed to eat, right? They needed that. Bring your best lambs and your best, your best lamb, your best goats. Bring those because, we don't like pigs. But, they had bad taste in meat. Let's be real. Come on, man. How you not going to like bacon? But, hey. But they love lamb and they, they loved goat. And they wanted that brought And, you know, the best animals, bring your best animals from your flock and sacrifice it on the altar. And that way the priest class gets to eat, because they don't work, because they're grifters. Don't you guys get it? Just like your preachers nowadays, they're grifters. They were grifters and they're still grifters. This is a class of people that control others through manipulation. They get you to give them your energy and money. To them, they don't do shit. They just feed you with lies and bullshit. And yet you give them your power, your money, your being. And they'll sit there and lie to you. You know what, people? I get it. I have people leave my page and unfollow me all the time because they cannot see through their programming. I get it, man. I used to be hardcore. I mean, I lived and died the Bible. I absolutely, my God, I thought it was the ultimate truth in this world. But I'll tell you what, then I started studying the Sumerian tablets and other ancient religions, and I started realizing that, you know, and then following accounts of people that, you know, have out-of-body experiences and near-death experiences, people that actually cross over and then come back and tell the truth about what is on the other side. But yet, you know, for a long time, I followed this BS. And so many people are just caught up in the matrix of religion. It's like people want to say, you know, they're truthers and they're open and awakened and, you know, and yeah, they see the evil government for what it is. They see the world controllers. They see the poison in our food. But yet they champion this war god as the God of creation, which is absolutely ridiculous. They can't see through the lies of, you know, Preacher Dan. You know, Dan's sitting up there with his Cadillac and his, you know, biggest house in the area on the hill. He's a man of God. He's doing God's work. He's probably got a few mistresses on the side from his congregation, and I'm sure he's got these mistresses believing that, you know, oh, they're going to heaven because they're sleeping with Pastor Dan. He's a good guy. You know, he's doing God's work, so they're doing God's work, right? I mean, I know it's wrong. I mean, I know not all pastors are like this, people. I get it, man. There are some pastors that do delve into the Old Testament, teach Revelation, stuff like that, which most won't. But let's be real, people. Most of these people are given marching orders, just like your government officials. The World Council of Churches dictates what most of these churches can teach and what they can't teach. When they go to seminary school, they teach what they can teach and what they can't teach. Don't you get it? It's all controlled. Religion is, in fact, probably the greatest of the manipulations of man. Because when you start making people afraid that their very existence is going to be blotted out or they're going to burn in hell for eternity, oh, wow. That's when people, they want, I mean, a lot of people, I think, are honestly in religions because I guess their thinking is, look, I don't really believe this bullshit. You know, I'm having questions about it. I mean, if you've ever read the Old Testament, you've got to question that, right? I mean, I don't understand how somebody could be that ignorant. But their worry is that they got that fear all the time in the back of their mind that, but what if? What if the Bible is true? And what if I'm blotted out by God? What if I'm, you know, my spirit gets wiped out and there's no more me ever in existence? Folks, please understand. You are an immortal, fractal, you know, spark of divinity from God. You're part of God. You're one with God, the Creator. The true God is love is the most highest power in the spirit realm. And God is that power. And you are from that. And you are part of it. And you are God. And you are not to be destroyed. You live forever. You experience different worlds. You've been here on earth many times. In fact, most of us probably lived during those times that, hey, what if you were a Philistine? And here come the good old Judean tribes coming in to freaking wipe you out. What did you do to them? Oh, you were just existing, but you were worshiping one of the Sumerian gods, you know, say Marduk. known as Baal in the Old Testament, or Ra in the Egyptian pantheon. Hey, maybe your village or your tribe, you followed that god. Oh, yep, here comes Enlil's army, Yahweh's army. Oh, you're worshiping. Uh-oh, his brother's son, Marduk, Enki's son. Oh, got to destroy these, MFers. Look at these infidels. Look at these blasphemers against God, against the Lord of hosts. You know what Lord of hosts means, right? Lord of armies. That's what it means. Lord of armies. Yeah, that's your God of peace and love. Yeah, that's the God that you're banking on. He ain't going to destroy your fucking soul, okay? I'll tell you what, man, that ain't a God that I'm hanging my hat on, but hey, you want to, that's fine. And I want to go more into this. I'm at work, folks. Hey, I get it if I'm pissing you off, but I'll tell you what, test me on it. Go read some of the Sumerian tablets. Go read the Atrahasis. Go read the Epic of Gilgamesh. You'll start seeing all the stories from the Old Testament. Go read the Adam and Eve, or the Adam and Eve creation story. Basically, there's a version in the Sumerian. It's Enki and Ninmah. God, I can't remember the exact name of it. Basically, Enki and his sister Ninmah, his half sister, who she is also Isis in the Egyptian pantheon. They're explaining how they're fashioning Adam, the first Adam, which Adam was not a person. Adam was a prototype for a human prototype. Go read it yourself. Go read the Atrahasis, the Epic of Gilgamesh. You'll find the true version of Noah's flood in there. You'll start to see that this Lord of hosts, this Most High, this El Elyon, this Yahweh, Jehovah, all these different names that, hey, guess what? It's actually not one God, it's multiple gods. And basically, when you're saying that that's the creator of all, you're actually just worshiping ancient Sumerian gods. That's it. I'm sorry to tell you. That is the truth. And the Gnostics actually had it right. There's a reason why they wiped out the Gnostics. Because the Gnostics were telling you the truth. The Old Testament God is the devil, the demiurge. And his hosts of archons, which were the other Anunnaki, the other Anuna, the lesser Anuna, the Igigi, that they were helping him control humanity through this matrix. Okay? So, you got to understand this, people. I mean, please understand this. That do the research yourself. Okay? Don't listen to Pastor Dan, because Pastor Dan's reading a script. Every Sunday, every Wednesday, whenever you guys have church, Saturdays possibly, he's given a script on what to teach. Yeah. It's like a newscaster. You know how they show all those newscasters all reading the same story, like 100 different TV stations all saying the same thing? Guess what? That's what your pastor does. Oh, he might throw his personal stories in there. Oh, this verse was about me when I met my wife, and I made this mistake, and I learned from it, it's all BS, people. Come on. He just wants you to put money in that collection pan. That's it. That's all he wants, man. He needs to make his mortgage payment. He needs to put food on his table, just like the priest class of old. He lives off of your labor. Yeah, I know. I'm an ass. I get it, man. These truths are honestly self-evident when you start reading these books. So, okay, I better get into work, guys. I'd love to talk to you forever. Like to hear your thoughts. And hey, if I made you mad, that's fine. At the very least, if I can get you to even just study that Old Testament, study those Sumerian tablets, look into Zoroastrianism, even if just for your own research to debunk what I'm telling you, that's fine with me. And if you come to the realization that, hey, I'm wrong, and you figured it out and you can debunk what I'm telling you, then hey, at least you did the research and you can stand on that, right? Whatever resonates with you. But anyways, I appreciate you guys, and I will talk to you later.